Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the In Learning Partnership Coaching into the Future live stream. I'm Lena Darnay with Keep Indiana Learning, and I'm so excited to have Julia Crone, one of our Keep Indiana Learning digital learning coaches, joining us for our anchor session of the event today. Hi, Julia.
Hi there, Lena.
So good to have you. I'm really excited for people to hear from you because you run the Idea Lab out in Plainfield, and it's one of the neatest spaces that I've been in. So I'm going to turn it over to you so you can share a little bit about your story.
Awesome. Thank you, Lena. So today what I wanted to talk to you about was storytelling for connection. You know, this is something that's been so much on my heart lately. I went to actually FETC in Florida, where it's a technology conference, and I started soaking up everyone's stories, and also within the lab. How about, let me skip ahead and show you this, and then I'll go back. This is where I work. I get to come here every single day, and it's fantastic. So I am at Plainfield Community Middle School, and I teach grades 6 through 8 come through our Idea Lab. And as you can see in that space, I mean, we have a green screen room, we have sound booth, we have so many different cool things. But my favorite thing beyond just, watching kids get to be hands-on and try new things are our teachers. And I cannot do my job without collaborating directly with our teachers. Everything that we do within the lab is completely related to curriculum and to STEM, and trying to integrate that seamlessly, and also giving our educators within Plainfield Community Middle School the confidence to integrate. And what I have found is that connection and trust is one of the top most important things that I've found. And when I'm connecting with others, I just feel like storytelling is just such an important way to connect and get people engaged. And so, as Lena said, I am a digital learning coach. I do have my email up there if you ever want to reach out and you want to talk more about STEM and the Idea Lab. I do, like I said, so I am, as director of the Idea Lab, I help teachers get the resources, community contacts, and then help students have real world connections and authentic connections within our school. And so I feel really lucky to be a part of such a forward thinking corporation. So I kind of want to talk both from a leadership perspective and then also for a coaching perspective. So where we're going to go during this time, and all the research that I've done is from Stephen Denning, David Cooper-Ryder, and Bree Hodges. I found a lot of information about storytelling. I kind of like I said, it was something that was on my heart, and then I was like, well, let's find some deeper information about it. So basically, I'm going to go through like why we need to be telling stories as coaches and leaders, and 3 different types of stories to tell, and then the 8 reasons to tell stories, and then I'm going to kind of loop it all into uncertainty. I feel like more and more people, both our students and our teachers, are in chaos and anxiety, and maybe not so much the teachers, but they're seeing it within their students. And I feel like more than ever, we feel a lot more helpless, or kind of questioning our teaching ability. And so there's so many stories, especially with when we think about the pandemic, that all across Indiana, we were having this very unique and scary situation and an experience. And so I think it's important to share our experiences. So as I said, talking about why storytelling, I'm not going to go too deep into that. I mean, we can think of even back to the cave times. This is how they connect. They pass stories, Native Americans, of making sure that they passed important information on from generation to generation. My kids are 3 and 6. Every single night they want a story. And it's such a neat, when I tell them stories, sometimes I'm like, mommy's tired, come on guys. But it's every time I'm like, oh, all right, I'll tell you a really quick story, because it's so important for them to feel connected. And it's a way that I'm able to take them. And I love to actually tell stories about family. So my children feel this. But even in a school, both students and teachers, we're learning best, we're showing up best whenever we do feel connected. And honestly, millennials are flooding the workplace, and millennials more than anything at work, they do crave flexibility. You're not necessarily going to get that in a school system, but they also want purpose and they want transparency. So there's no better way to provide that, I feel like, than to give them a way to be engaged in their work. When they're able to see themselves within situations, they become a lot more invested. And then the best part is it's powerful, it's quick, it's persuasive, it's free, and it can be very collaborative as well. I think when teachers are sharing, extremely important. And then it's memorable as well too. That's another thing that I love about it. One of the things that I'm going to kind of highlight is when we are telling stories, I do think it's really important to lean towards the positivity. We do need to ask questions like what's wrong, but it doesn't have to be framed like that. We know we shouldn't be asking what's at fault. Sometimes things have happened and now we're going to have to say, all right, this isn't working. Like what's changing? What's possible? So we don't like this. This isn't working. Where do we want to be, and how do we get there? And one of my favorites are, when were we at our best? And sometimes I'm like, oh, when was I at my best? It's February right now in a school system. February is hard for educators, but that's okay. I'll be on my best, definitely on a beach in a few weeks. So that's okay though too. But so asking those questions, and also leaning towards positivity, like I said, how we frame our stories. The three different types of stories that are really important for coaches and leaders to use are continuity, novelty, and transition. And continuity is core identity. That is, and I'm going to go deeper into all of these. It's where have we been? It's what is our core identity? What is at the root of what we're doing? And helpful hint for educators, it is our students, right? Student centers. Novelty. Where do we want to go? This is innovation. This is something new. Where would we like to go? And then transition is where we mostly live. We're learning every single day. Today, I learned that I accidentally had my styrofoam cutter with like my wood burner, and a student was like, oh, I'm like, the styrofoam cutter's in that drawer. Well, my friend got the wood burner for the styrofoam cutter. And I thought we were going to have the fire alarm in this terrible weather, but luckily the Idea Lab gods had it taken care of. But transition, what we're constantly learning, and then what are we going to do from there? So the continuity students or continuity stories, like I said, those are like your street cred stories. These are how we came to be. This is where you want to minimize disruption. And also, I am going to talk about some stories, but the key to this, I'm going to tell a few stories, not a ton. And part of that is because it has to be, what's authentic to you. What stories do you have to tell? What have you heard? What have you found? And sometimes you can find other people's stories as well too. But continuity stories are really important as times of change. Like I said, people are in anxiety. They're in upheaval. They're in chaos like never before. Processes change. And that's one thing. I was talking to a teacher, and she's gonna retire in the next year or two. And I was kind of asking her about, when we changed, she had reminded me that she's like, do you remember the first time you taught me how to use a Google form? And she's like, you taught me. And then you're like, now do it again 5 more times for the rest of your classes. And she's like, I was like, what? And now she's doing it. She's like, I do it like, seamlessly. She goes, but I always think about how the first time that you taught me. But in this way that we're wanting to do, it's minimizing disruption. It's not messing with who we are. We're here to do what's best for kids. And like I said, when I was talking about going through the processes, we're in times of change consistently. And, that's a beautiful thing in education. I know that there's ways that we can look at it, but I do think that we're constantly learning. Our students are constantly changing because our environment is constantly changing. And so we have to change. We have to find out, what processes are working, what's not, and where are we going to go to from there. And I kind of had that bottom sentence of, here we are facing tough times, and for us, it should be the students will be at the front of our decisions. So even as leaders, you have to sometimes make the really hard decisions, but it's bringing people on and maybe even just saying that, hey guys, before you're going to do some change, and I'll do a few stories that have continuity in them, but before we're going to do some change, we're doing this because our core value is this. And one of my favorite things, actually, our core value of Plainfield Community Schools, our mission statement is bringing joy to learning. So for us, that would be a continuity story, and having teachers tell it and leaders tell that. I did get this from Bree Hodges, but I told you if you wanted to like screenshot or do whatever you'd like to do. But I thought these were powerful questions of, tell me about a time that when you or your team powerfully lived your values, even if it may have come at a cost. And so, and then tell me about a time, tell me about something that happened at the beginning and what that says about us that's still true. So kind of going back and reframing and getting back to that center, like, okay, we've been in chaos, but what we are doing is for the students. So let's take a deep breath and let's see what we need to do, what needs to be changed. And that could be with individual teachers, that could be with a school as a whole. So that continuity is really important. What's at our core value? And I think it's okay to ask somebody too, their core values of both at home and at school, within reason. I mean, I find that my core values within home and school, they align, they are the same, except at home, it's about my children, not about my students, right? And my family. The next one is the novelty stories. And I love these. Here, you're not minimizing disruption. You're stirring it up. You're making it go. We want innovation. These are harder stories, and these can be a lot harder stories because this is going to be where, like I said, we're stirring things up, but we're trying to go towards the future. And this is where, like, it hasn't happened yet. So it's kind of hard to tell a story about something that hasn't happened. So this is more of like the imagining. This is, instead of, though, giving up information, instead of just saying, hey, we're going to do this, let's go. Instead of giving a directive, it's like, okay, my friends, that's where we kind of go to the continuity of this is where we are. This is who we are. However, this isn't quite working. We need to try something new. This is casting a vision, and you can't just tell people what to do. Like I said, millennials are flooding the workplace. They want purpose. They want that passion. They want reasons. They want to be engaged. And storytelling is one of the best ways to do that. So novelty stories are bringing that innovation in. And these are some of the questions. Tell me about a time when we were at our best. Oh, once again, that question hurts and it feels good to think about sometimes. Sometimes it's hard. And we acted on our mission. How did that make you proud? And what happened? And then take me to a moment when you saw something valuable that we do not have here, but imagine what it would be like if we did. Like I said, I just went to FETC. That was in Florida, the technology conference. And I was at the end of one session and I just sat in a chair, and the presenter was like, are you okay? Are you waiting for the next presenter? Would you like to talk to me? And I'm like, boy, you gave me a lot to process. Like I just was having vision after vision of how amazing it would be to bring this to our staff. And I'm trying to process how that looks and what that looks like, because some of this stuff would really shake up what we do. And then, so a part of innovation, part of the novelty story, one of the things that my school corporation just recently did, and I think this was the very first year that they actually put it into the rubric, but 2 years ago, they announced that they were going to make changes to the teacher evaluation rubric, and it was going to incorporate design thinking. Once again, going back to our core values, it's about students, it's about our mission of bringing joy to learning, and so this is what is best for kids. This is how we're bringing joy to learning, of design thinking, of having students work hands-on, working collaboratively, bringing in the 4 C's as well too. Well, they could have just dumped a bucket, right? And been like, okay, this is what we're doing. Instead, it was kind of like a drip, drip, drip of like, hey, today we're going to practice design thinking in this way, but we're going to just focus on empathy. Hey, we're hiring Julia Crone to come into the Idea Lab, and she's going to work directly with you with design thinking. She can meet with you on your prep. She can help you write lesson plans, whatever you need. We have these tools for you. And after 2 years, it came to our evaluation rubric, and teachers were ready for it. It wasn't something that was a shock to the system. It wasn't a bucket that was dumped on them. And the story was consistently told, and it went back to that continuity of like what is best for the students. And so I just thought that was really powerful to bring those two things in, and not just necessarily having to like we're gonna have change and you're gonna like it. It's not just a bucket dumped on people. It can be the drip, and you're gonna be supported. So novelty, I think, is really cool. Transition, like I said, is pretty much where we live. And these are our learning stories. Today I learned about my styrofoam cutter. Wild, right? But this is, we tried something and it didn't work, and we learned something valuable. So, and I don't think there has to be apologies for that. That if we're consistently going back to our core values and we're doing something that we think is best, or we're trying to give our teachers the best practices that are out there, and sometimes it's not going to work. Sometimes it might not fit into a particular teacher's learning style. So what are our other options? Okay, that didn't work. All right, let's go back. Now let's go to the novelty. Imagine a world where we're trying this. Like, what do you want your classroom to look like? An ideal day. So this is more about the process and what we're living in. I loved this. I'm in classes right now through Indiana State, and my professor, Dr. Bobby Jo Monahan, brought in Linda Biggs as a speaker, and she is actually a principal in Terre Haute, and she told a story. This is what I love. This is why it was memorable to me. And she told a story about how when she first came into our elementary school, her teachers didn't know her. And the very first thing that she did as principal was she sent out a survey that was like, what can't I change? What do I need to know about that I cannot change? And what was interesting about that is that she kind of got to their core values of like, okay, what do my teachers value here? If it's jeans on Friday, then I'm not going to mess with jeans on Friday, right? So I think even getting other people's stories, she could have just came in and been like, this is it. And she is a very big figure, very awesome. And like I said, she was only presented for about 40 minutes, but I loved every story that she told. But I have these images here that are from this image here that's from Bree Hodges as well. But, I'm sure when she walked in the door and something was new, there's questions that people ask. Who are you? What can you do for me? Why should I care? Why should I trust you? How should I feel about you? And what do you want me to do next? And all of those things can be told in stories. And then I also have here the merging of two schools. One of my friends came from a school that two of the schools had merged. And it was hard. Like, what story do you tell? You're telling there's two different schools that came together. There's a lot of different values that are in there. And so transitional periods are hard, but then that's once again of like, okay, what unites us? That goes back to that core value, that novelty. Where do we want to go? And that transition, this is where we are. And my friends, I know it's tough, but I'm going to get to know each one of you. I'm going to give you directives on what's going to happen next. I'm going to tell you a story so you can find out that, I'm here best for the school. And I think this is also important to coaches too, of, when you come into a school of like, okay, what can you do for me? And, some of that showing up and communicating that, whether that's through newsletters, whether that's through conversation, whether that's for you going to a teacher that you trust and you doing something for them, and another teacher's like, oh, why was that instructional coach? Why was that coach in there talking to you? What do you need help with? And like, oh no, I'm always growing. So finding people to also tell those stories. And then transitional questions to ask. Tell me about a moment when you saw someone make a step towards desired change. What did they do and what happened? And then what was a time when you or your team had to solve a tough problem, and how did you finally get to the solution? I'm running low on time, so I'll tell this one really quick because I like this one. This one is all continuity, novelty, and transition. So at our PLC meeting last week, I have a really awesome assistant principal, Brooke Walden. She's fantastic, but she played a voicemail from her grandma. And she told us, she introduced her grandma. I'm kind of like, why is she introducing a story about her grandma? Plays a voicemail from her, and her grandma's passed away. And it was like, hey, just wanted to let you know, I went and I tried this, and I'm going to butcher this, but I just want to let you know, I tried this new place. They had these bourbon baked beans. So I called them, and I'd been thinking about it. I called them. I said, your bourbon baked beans are terrible. And she said, the people said, well, I know. Well, why don't you mess with it? Well, we're going to. Well, I just think that you need to add ketchup and sugar. And it was a whole conversation, but it was adorable because, this grandma was telling a restaurant and called them to say, hey, you're doing this wrong. And so from there, our teachers are laughing after listening to that voicemail. And then our assistant principal went into, okay, this is where we are. Right now, our seventh graders are not like 2019 seventh graders, but yet we're still trying to teach them just like they are. Things aren't working. And that's okay. Our core value is that we're here for the students. You're frustrated, we're frustrated, they're frustrated. Um, our discipline inferrals are up like crazy right now. We need to change. We're going to transition, or we're going to go to something new. We're going to that novelty transition. Here's where we are, continuity. We're here for the students, and this is where we want to go. So it was just a really short, quick story. But then she used her words instead of just saying, hey, we're going to do this now. She teed it up, and the teachers laughed. We were into it. We were engaged, and it was fun. The 8 narrative patterns. So as I said, I had told you that those 3 are the type of stories to tell. These are like, when would we tell stories? So storytelling to ignite action and implement new ideas. Like I had just given that example where my assistant principal had teed up a story. Instead of just telling us what we're doing, we're also going to try something new with RTI this next year. And this is once again novelty and continuity. They kind of did this at our team leader meeting, and they had, when I say they, our principal, decided, they just started kind of like, this is what we're going to do. Well, my principal, who's really empathetic and awesome, she read the room and it was like, hold on, let's take a step back. This is why we're doing this. This is what we're seeing. This is what we think is best for the students. So I do think storytelling is really extremely important to get teachers. And my principal read the room. Everyone was like, oh gosh, like kind of dove right in. So it's really important to make sure that you're telling stories, you're giving that background, that purpose. Building trust. I had it recently, was in a new teacher's room, and when I went in there, I was going through for I was going in there for coaching. And when I was done, I had a conversation with him, and he's like, I'm just really frustrated. He came in at semester, and he's like, I've been really frustrated, and I've been frustrated because my last block is just crazy. Like the rest of the time isn't. But at the end of the day, I'm leaving the day feeling like I'm a bad teacher. And I sat down, and I was like, I was new to this district, and I came in at semester 2. And he's like, what? Like I came in the middle of a semester. I'm like, yeah, in 2016, I came in, and I would say my 7th period made me question. I'd never questioned if I was a good teacher or not. In my 7th period, they were testing me. And I was a good teacher. I was. But man, I just was having a really hard time making that connection for whatever reason. And I'm like, I tried this, I tried that. And then they did this and they did that. And it kept failing. But I kept trying. And here's some of the things that I tried. And when I was done, we kind of made a plan for him of what he was going to do in his block. And I was leaving. He was like, thank you. Like I've been actually feeling really alone with this, and kind of like, I don't want to say dumb, but I just haven't felt, like myself. And this was very nice to know that you also came in and struggled. I'm like, absolutely. And I'm like, and you're a great teacher, 100%. We're struggling with one block, and that's okay. We're going to get it figured out. So storytelling to build trust as well too. And that, then to build brand, I do think it's actually really important that if you're not telling stories, somebody else is of your school. So it's really important that we're sharing successes from the classroom. That could be on social media, that could be in newsletters. When I think about me living in a middle school, I guarantee most kids, when they come home, they're like, how was your day? It was fine. Or they just want to talk about, the drama that they might have had within their friend groups. Storytelling to transmit organizational values. So this should be told again and again and again. You could never tell these too many times, of going back to the mission, going back to our core values, going back to where we want our staff to be. Fostering collaboration. And I love where this says this here, of we are not a team because we work together. We're a team because we respect and learn from one another. So allowing time for collaboration. In fact, after my assistant principal went through the changes that we're going to have, she also formed a committee so we can kind of collaborate. There could be teacher voice within what we're changing. I added this. Mentimeter is a really fun thing that I've been using that I really like, where you can go to Mentimeter and you could actually have like at the start of a professional development or the start of a staff meeting, you can have people vote, or you could have people create like a word wall. You can have a question up and teachers can type into it. So it's a neat way for teachers to be able to have some voice, or, tell me how you're feeling, tell me, one good thing from today, or tell me what's most on your mind. And, you could have kind of like that voting and see where your teachers want to go and where their needs are. Sharing knowledge. That's an important time to tell a story as well, too. You can push information out or you can pull people in. Neutralizing a rumor. I do want you to be aware as a leader and as an instructional coach, you cannot stop all negative stories from being told. But if you are communicating and you are being clear and you are telling the truth, those things will be seen. Those will be seen direct, they will be clear, and people will start to understand and they will trust, and that will kind of stop the negative stories from being told when you put the stories out there that are positive. But once again, that also comes from telling the truth as well too. Create and share vision. Once again, I almost kind of think about this is a great time. Create a culture where every student can grow and every teacher can be a leader. What is the vision for your school? What is the vision as you as a coach? What do you want to provide to your teachers, and being able to communicate that with them? Vulnerability. When I do talking about stories, I do think it's important there are times where you can be raw, you can be emotional, but I do want you to know that not everyone has earned the rights to all of your stories. And so what that means, there are appropriate stories to tell. And sometimes there's stories that, you can be there for a person and say, you can listen to their story, but you don't have to share absolutely everything. So vulnerability is extremely important, but also making sure that you are remaining safe while telling your story is an important facet within this as well too. This brings us to uncertainty. So everything is crazy, and we need to make sure that we're giving our teachers something to lean on. They are wanting in this time of uncertainty something to be reminded of. We're in challenging and dark times. And to where this stability in a time of darkness is something that's really important. That's where I think storytelling brings in that communication. This is what I need from you. This is where we're going. This is our clear mission. This is what is at our core value. Here is where I think that we can be. Here is where we're living. And then also just going through of like listening to people as well too. During that uncertainty, there is even more listening than there is storytelling. So bringing people in with those uncertainty. And then the last thing I know this is like, I think I learned about this and like 2009 was one of the first parts, but I was kind of looking through some things. I'm like, oh, I kind of forgot about the hats. And I kind of love the hats too, of when you're going through and you are maybe bringing people in on a story or bringing people in on something new, or you're doing a lesson with a teacher. I think it could be really neat to bring in the hats. And I don't think you have to wear all the hats. I don't think you have to touch all of them. But like one of the things that I love of like the red hat of, how do you think your students are going to feel? Let's look at this lesson, or let's look at these changes that we're going to make from the student perspective. Okay, so we're making changes now. Let's go to like the facts, or let's be as creative as possible in this lesson. Let's put a green hat on. Let's have some fun. What are you wanting to get your students out of this? What are all the different types of possibilities within that? And then we have the blue hat that's like, what is the organization need? That's kind of like taking a step back in the planning. Our white hat are like, what are our facts? What do we need to know? This is data collecting, which is great. If someone wears the yellow hat, you're only allowed to say positive things. You're not allowed to poke any holes. You've got to be positive. And so that can be kind of fun, especially if you're trying to do anything that's innovative and new. You could even do this within PLCs and have them wear the different types of hats and allow them to tell a story, your teachers, and definitely be a part of their learning experience and their coaching experience in you as a leader. So I will want to go back actually maybe to that very first slide, which maybe is what I shouldn't do because I'm going to go all the way back through. I think storytelling, as I said, is so important, especially in these times of uncertainty. I have my contact information there. I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to reach out at any time. I feel really lucky and blessed to be a part with Lena and Keep Indiana Learning. So make sure you keep checking out Keep Indiana Learning in our partnerships.
Thank you so much, Julia. I loved that hats thing at the end was so great. I was really like, oh, I want to spend more time with that. So I hope this isn't the last time we see you on one of our live streams, just the first time. What a great story to end with today. What a powerful way to think about how we are shaping our understanding through that power of the human need for story. Thanks, Julia. Thanks, everybody, for watching our live stream today about coaching into the future. As part of the In-Learning Partnership, we love to provide you with the content you need right when you need it, wherever you need it. So make sure that you're following our hashtag #InLearningPartner to make sure you don't miss any of our upcoming events. Thanks again, Julia. Everyone, have a great night.